One of the things that I learned about men is that you know that things will get difficult. You know that. So you talk about problems and difficulties as when things get difficult, when we have problems. Women think if this is meant to be, there will be no difficulties and there will be no problems. And if I'm having a problem, I'm going to hide the problem from you. Because if I tell you I'm having a problem, then you'll know we're not meant to be and it'll be over. So women actually hide the problems that could be the demonstrations that men are looking for, which the way one man put it was, what I want to know is when we have a problem, are you going to make me the problem? Or are we going to be on the same team solving the problem? And that's the evidence they're looking for. And we don't know that. There's this fairy tale that it's going to be smooth. It's going to develop organically. Sometimes men will say, I want something to just evolve organically. Well, a lot of relationships that have lasted decades they developed under fire. And it either blew up quickly or they kept getting how much they could trust each other. And many of the great romantic movies are about that, right?
Welcome to the Heart of Man podcast, a podcast for any man seeking to live in alignment with his deepest core and lead a life of profound meaning and connection. I'm your host, Alex Lehman, and I'm here to empower you through transformative conversations, eye-opening insights, and practical wisdom. Join me now as we venture into the heart of man. Let's dive in.
Alison Armstrong is back for her second round on the Heart of Man. For those of you unfamiliar with her, Alison is a sought-after teacher, thought leader, and the author of the best-selling books Keys to the Kingdom and The Queen's Code. For over 3 decades, she's been teaching and speaking about men, women, human behavior, and relationships. Through her seminars, books, online programs, and media contributions, she's helped millions of people create more fulfilling lives, loving relationships, stronger families, and more productive organizations. Her philosophy and approach have been referenced and taught by many other authors, speakers, and therapists. As her work has evolved over the decades, Alison has focused on illuminating the human instincts that shape behavior, instincts that transcend gender, age, or upbringing. She helps us see how these deeply embedded tendencies can create conflict in relationships and how understanding them can lead to more harmony, connection, and clarity. I'm incredibly excited to share this upcoming conversation with you, where we dive into one of the frameworks that has deeply shaped my own life, the amazing development of men. This model outlines the stages that a man will instinctively move through in his life, from page all the way to elder, each coming with its own distinct characteristics, motivations, and lessons. I found it to be an incredibly valuable map for understanding myself, identifying what I need in the phase that I'm in, and navigating the potential friction that can arise in intimate relationships. In this interview, we particularly focus on the stages of the prince, tunnel, and the king. Within the prince stage, when a man begins building his quote-unquote kingdom, Alison breaks down the different types of princes, the unique challenges they face, and how to skillfully navigate the conflicts that often arise during this period. What especially stood out for me were Alison's insights into the kind of woman a man chooses when he's ready to build a life, and why the belief that men are non-committal is a myth. From there, we dive into the powerful tunnel stage, which can be seen as a reckoning and a deep period of reflection where a man confronts the ways he might have abandoned or betrayed himself in pursuit of success or approval. Alison shares how to move through the stage deliberately, and I highly encourage you to listen to our first interview as well, where we explore the process of noble forgiveness, a pathway navigating through shame that ultimately allows a man to step into the king stage with clarity and integrity. As with our last conversation, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Alison. I continue to be deeply inspired by her work, especially by the reverence and clarity with which she speaks about men. Her teachings offer profound insights not only into relationships, but into our own development, and I'm confident you will receive value from it. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. Let's dive in.
Alison Armstrong, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the Heart of Man. Thank you for agreeing to return back for a second round.
You're welcome. I'm ecstatic to be here. May I tell you something that's affecting how I'm being?
Absolutely.
I spent Thursday night all day, like 8:30 to 9:30, Friday and Saturday, and a very big chunk of Sunday at a gathering of men shaping the future of men's work.
Wow.
And I didn't know what men's work was until it was by invitation only. And being with some of the legends, like founders of the Mankind Project, for example, and people doing amazing things, and finding out the difference between men's work and the men's movement, which is really important because what I do is becoming part of both in some ways, but it fits very happily in men's work. And as I can imagine you would know, and I am so full of man love. I was one of about 12 women out of 87 people, and I am overflowing with being loved and appreciated by men. And just thank you. Thank you, men.
Wow, like it's already interesting. I mean, just getting started and just receiving this comment as well, what stands out for me is just this love that you have for men. And I think one of the things that had deeply impacted me when I was introduced to your work, it has supported me to find more reverence, more respect, and more honor for the man in the mirror. And I know as well that this is the case for so many men. And, this is as well why I love talking to you, and as well, why I'm so happy as well to have you back here for a second round.
Men and women have so much to give each other. And unfortunately, the way that things have devolved for a really, really, really long time, because it's been here all my life, and I was born in 1960, we're more focused on taking and scavenging than what we can give and what we need to receive in order to keep giving as much as we can give.
As mentioned to you before we started rolling, I have to say, out of all the interviews I've done over the last 2 years, the interview we did last year, especially on the subject matter such a man's relationship to shame, on the path of noble forgiveness, and how a man can restore a sense of honor, has definitely been one of my favorites. And it's one that greatly supported me, and as well a lot of listeners started checking in, and as well were communicating how much value they received from the conversation. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for that one. And for today, I've been especially intrigued to explore with you your teachings around a man's developmental journey. And again, these are teachings that have deeply shaped me and gave me a deeper understanding around my own path as a man. And my hope is as well, in us talking about this, that men listening in can gain deeper insight into the phases that they're navigating, but also the women that love them can essentially understand their men more deeply, and essentially as a result experience more compassion and more clarity to what their men are navigating.
Yes, I am for that. In the stages of development, I don't know if you know where I started. When I found out I was bringing out the worst in men, but I didn't know how, the question that popped into my head was, what if men are responding to women? And the what if was really important. What if men are responding to women? If the question had been, how are men responding to women? Then my mind would have hunted for all the hows. And instead I kept very neutral, looking to see, is this in response to a woman in the present, a woman in the past? Is it that kind of thing? Or is this something that has nothing to do with any woman in any time frame? And that's what was so amazing about the stages of development. And the thing that many of you say, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. Those are the things that have nothing to do with a woman. And even what men say about being honorable, that being honorable is doing the right thing no matter how you feel, which includes no matter if you're furious at her, you'll still save her. And no matter if you love her more than you've loved anyone in your life, if you can't give her what she needs, it's honorable to not marry her. and women don't know this about men. And then the stages of development and how they shape a man's focus, they shape what he needs, they shape what he can naturally provide, they shape what he cannot provide, no matter how he feels about that person. And they also end up leading to the mistakes that women make because of not knowing this, having expectations that don't fit with what's compelling a man at the time. And so women have loved this too. I would like to put a little caveat in though, okay? May
Absolutely.
I? So in my observation, human beings objectify. We objectify as easily as blinking, and maybe as often as blinking. We make conclusions about people, and the conclusions are nouns. So a danger is to take the stages of development and to then start talking about, I'm a prince, I'm a knight, I'm a tunnel man, right? And I made this mistake in the beginning. Oh, there's a tunnel man, there's a prince, there's a king. And it's too confining, it's too simplifying, and as soon as we interact with ourselves or anybody else like a thing, we've got a sliver of the picture. So I invite to say, seems like I'm in the night stage. I'm experiencing a need for adventure, conquest, checking, developing skills, and then checking how well have I developed them by competing with other people. And even myself, because we've seen how this applies to women, I would say what I've been saying is I'm eldering. I appear to be eldering because it's a way of being and thinking. It's not I'm an elder. Okay, put me in the elder box. So I just want to say that ahead of time, because from everything that I do, I just want people to take what empowers them.
I like that.
If it doesn't serve you, don't worry about it. You don't have to have me or anybody else straighten it out for you. And for any women listening, do not tell a man what stage he's in. Oh, now I understand. You're a middle prince, and that's why. No, let him tell you. Let him tell you. Even the person considered an expert on it, I weighed in. Well, it seems like, does this resonate? What's this like for you? What's that like for you? Well, I think so.
I love what you're saying here, because I believe as well it's an incredible disservice to ourselves and as well others when we simplify ourselves in these ways and objectify ourselves. I mean, we're these complex, wise, incredible beings, and there's so much more to us than just these terms that we're using to define ourselves. And on that note, I found, particularly as a man, I don't know what a woman's experience is around this, but what I found valuable in the stages of development is that it gave me a map. I love a map as a man. Like some form of understanding of, like, it seems like I'm lost in the jungle, I'm lost in the forest, I don't know where I'm at. And it just gives me some context. And I absolutely agree to your point, holding it somewhat loosely and still understanding that, I'm so much more complex than being in this prince phase, where I would kind of maybe situate myself in, or at least I can connect to the qualities that you communicate around being in a prince phase. And I guess I found it particularly valuable when I had seen as well this extreme shift of behavior in me from knight to prince. And it was so interesting for me in the sense that, and I'll say this, and then I would love to maybe backtrack so we can maybe create a general overview for listeners around the stages of development. But maybe just to give as well some context, it was so fascinating for me to witness that 6 years ago, I found myself in this very different position in my life. I was traveling the world
Mhm.
up until that point for a few years. I was exploring various different continents. I was constantly seeking adventure and testing myself in new ways. And it was incredible. I mean, I just felt exhilarated. And it was until around 2020 when something radically shifted in me. And I felt this deep need to create and to build. And it seems like my whole orientation moved from what do I want to do now? What's in the present moment to where do I want to go? Like, where's the future going to take me? And I noticed that this playful, adventurous, lighthearted spirit somewhat gave way for something more serious and a deep compulsion or a deep impulse to build something, essentially a quote unquote kingdom. And having some context of that experience gave me a little bit of compassion around the challenges I was
Mm.
navigating and just the ways I was like, what is wrong with me? Like that was a question that I was asking myself. And so I think
Mhm.
within this context, it provides understanding, it provides compassion. And I think that's how it helped me. So I think this is also my desire in terms of communicating this framework.
Yes, and I'm so glad you said that because in interacting with women, as much as I have since 1995, from the point of view that if this is a war between the sexes on the offense, women are drawing blood, men are on the defense. That's why we're getting the worst out of them. Because when a man has to protect himself, it's going to get ugly. And so the flip side of your what's wrong with me is a woman who maybe was with you during your night stage, during the adventure, right? And lots of fun and attention, except for when you had to go do it with somebody else. I can't pay attention to you and do this at the same time, right? Because there are things like that. Women want to be included, not knowing that we're going to take away from your experience because you're going to worry, are we safe? You're going to have attention on protecting us instead of just going, for lack of a better expression, balls out at what you're doing, right? And I had to learn this from noticing the difference in my husband when he took me on a motorcycle ride where I was on the back of his motorcycle as a certified Zen passenger. Just like not adding any weight to what we were doing. I'm invisible and weightless, weightless, weightless. And he would make sure I was safe and that I was having fun, and we'd come back and it was lovely. When he went out on his own and came back with more leather rubbed off of the edge of his riding boot, he was so full, right? He was just like, he got what he needed from riding motorcycles fast. And so I stopped asking to go. Unless it really mattered to me, I stopped asking to go. Nope, you get what you need. So thankfully, I was looking at all of this from this point of view because how a woman will relate to you, for example, changing from knight to prince is, well, you're no fun anymore. Well, all you're paying attention to is what you're learning, what you're making, how you're refining it, your contacts, your networking. What the heck? I thought I was marrying the other guy. How did I get this guy? And the way of interacting with you is that you're misbehaving. You're misbehaving and you tricked me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You conned me into this by acting that other way, and now you're being this way. So there's so much hurt because then we take it personally. If you loved me more, you'd spend more time with me. But honey, I don't know how I could love you more, and I'm doing what I'm doing for you, for us. I'm building a life for us. Well, doesn't seem like it over here, right? So it's just, there's so much of she'll tell you what's wrong with you. Happily. I can tell what's wrong with you. I'll tell you what's wrong with you. Because that's what we see. You're wondering, and we're sure. Yeah. And it's just the context. It's life sucking, for one thing. It doesn't ever resolve in a happy way. People leave to go find the person that's going to fit. Like you would be looking for someone more supportive, someone more understanding, someone more receptive and appreciative, someone who needed less from you, had a passion of her own, was more capable, right? Could hold down the fort while you were off slaying dragons. And so the stages of development, and especially middle prince, being in the tunnel, coming out of the tunnel, becoming a king, they are hazardous for couples who don't know what's happening and think there's something wrong with either one of them, or there's something wrong with us. What if there isn't?
I want to take a short moment to share that my podcast, Heart of Man, has just passed its second year, and it's been incredible to witness the growth, especially over this past year. My commitment has continued to follow the intersection of men's work, embodiment, and relationships, all in service of helping men become more resilient, integrated leaders in their own lives and in their partnerships. I just want to take a moment to say thank you. Hearing how these conversations are impacting your lives and seeing the show reach more and more listeners has been incredibly meaningful for me. I really don't take it for granted that you're choosing this podcast, especially with so many other incredible shows out there. And that's exactly why I remain committed to bringing you as much value as I can to continue having these conversations around men's development, emotional resilience, leadership, and relationships with exceptional thought leaders. If you've been finding value in this conversation or in past ones over the last 2 years, here's how you can support me. First, by subscribing to the show so you never miss a future episode. Second, and I can't emphasize this enough, leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify or a written review on Apple does make a huge difference. It helps more people discover the podcast, and it plays a big role in allowing me to bring on exciting new guests in the future. And lastly, if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support fuels this movement, helping men become integrated, heart-led leaders. Let's keep building it together. Now back to the show.
This is great. And perhaps we can now start off by just providing a bit of an overview. And these are exactly as well the stages that I want to focus on with you, particularly in the context of relationships, because, you know, in many ways, the individuals who are listening in to this podcast are very compelled here to create, you know, fulfilling and meaningful relationships. So perhaps we can begin by maybe just touching on the page and as well the night, and then from there move more extensively to the night, the tunnel, and then as well the king.
Certainly. And it's perfect how you leaned into this, because the what's wrong with me begins as a page. What's wrong with me begins as a young boy who doesn't know his mother and father are on hyperprotect, and they started out with the infant protecting it from anything external. And then as a boy is developing, now they're seeing character flaws. Now they're seeing dangerous behavior. And so, so now they're trying to protect the young man from himself. And they can do it, right? What's wrong with you? Or the boy starts wondering, what's wrong with me? My mom's always mad at me, right? My dad is always this. And so it happens to everybody, male or female. Early on, we end up with what's wrong with me. And because of how parents are protecting. So the page, if you think of a page, and we put this in the context of like Camelot, because we wanted to make sure it was honoring, that it wasn't, you know, boys, guys, and men, and the old guys, boys, guys, men, and the old guys, right? The geezers, right? We didn't want it to be like that, right? That's already a misbehavior, a disdain right? And so pages are, you could say, young knights. So they idolize knights. They idolize the adventures of the bigger boys, as they might think of them. And they want to do everything they do. They want to follow them around, and anything they do, they want to try to do it too. And then at puberty is when testosterone floods. It floods the system. Physical changes, obviously, but huge mental changes, and the changes in the brain. And one of the big things that happens in the brain at the night stage is that other men, other young men, become critically important. Who are my friends? Who are my homies? Who's my gang? Where's my brotherhood? Because the sense of, on my own, I can only accomplish so much. On my own, I'm only safe in certain circumstances. On my own, I can only conquer so much. The we-ness of the brotherhood, what the fun we can have, the things we can get into and get ourselves back out of, the loyalty. This is where have my back begins. Who's got my back? And this is the beginning of another schism between, I'm going to say male and female, because it's shaped by gender hormones. It doesn't matter what someone identifies as. Gender hormones have a profound effect. And one of the things that happens is, because of estrogen, and y'all have 15 to 30 times more testosterone than we do, which shapes your muscles, it shapes your bones, and it shapes your brain, and both in making your bigger and stronger, but also some things become weaker, right? But we're mostly in the bones and muscles department. We're profoundly aware of being weaker. And unfortunately, instinctually, and I'm so sorry to every man, both men and women are scanning for strength. As a man, you would tend to, or anyone organized around productivity, producing results, you're going to scan for complementary strength, right? The way that a Tom Brady would look for a Jerry Rice, right? The receiver that's going to change the paradigm for the quarterback because of their excellence. That's what we naturally look for, is complementary strength. And women don't know that you're also looking for that in a mate. Complementary strength. You want her to be good at what you're not good at. And then she makes you wrong for not being good at it. But you picked her for that, right? So what happens with this have your back thing, and what causes hurt and heartbreak and disrespect, is the woman's instinct is, I will have your back as long as you're right. We don't know that that's not have your back. Have your back, have my back, especially when I'm wrong, that you still have my back. And I had to learn this from men, what loyalty meant. Have my back, no matter whether I'm being an idiot, no matter how much I'm effing up, no matter, you've got my back. And I mean, this flows into so many other things we teach, like what to do when a man needs to vent. Do not defend his enemy. Have his back. Yeah, he really is one of the, push the car with him. Yeah, how did he get a license anyway? And then boom, it's gone. Instead of, oh, I'm sure he just didn't see you and he didn't mean to cut off, and la 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 la. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're loyal to him, not me.
Essentially
right?
invalidating his emotional experience.
And even bigger than that, right? Mental, physical, even who he thought she was, right? It's amazing. So that begins in this night stage. And which is, and I think you expressed it really well. And the way that I saw it in my son was, and this is another thing that people don't know, you can't compel men to care about things. You can't. Women care about so much, and will care about anything that's going to help us be protected and provided for and taken care of and liked. You can't instill in your son a love of baseball, right? Or a love of mathematics or the pursuit of musicianship. You can't do that. It's in there or it isn't. And you all pick what's worth developing yourself in, what's worth challenging yourself to get better, and even to judge when, and I saw this also in Jeff, there was a time when he said, I said, so where are you going surfing next? This was after the coast of Brazil. This was Tasmania. This was Australia. This was an island not far from where you are, an island called Sumba in Indonesia. You know Sumba?
Yeah, I do. Of course.
Yeah. So Nihiwatu. Jeff surfed Nihiwatu. And then he came back, and where are you going to surf next? I'm not. What do you mean? I've taken surfing as far as I want to, and what it would take to go to another level isn't worth it to me. Instead, I'm finding something that gives me what surfing does. Rock climbing. Right? But it doesn't matter what someone else says. But you're so good at it. You could be a this and a that. No, that's not what I'm going to pursue. And this is huge as a man. If I had it all my way, you would become impervious to criticism, impervious to people trying to knock you off of your self-certainty. Like you would just, no, I'm the one who chooses what I'm going to spend my life on. And this is really important for when you go into the tunnel. This is really important, and it's really hard because as a knight, and it can happen, there's a wide range of ages that someone can become a knight. Become a prince. Early prince can be as middle 20s even can happen, or it can not happen until early 40s, right? It's not a set time, but it is a shift, and it's a shift from that need to build, that need to have something to show for it. And nobody can give you the picture of what you're supposed to build. They'll try to. They will try to define what you're supposed to build. And cultures are all over this. They think it's their job to shape who you're going to be. And dishonor. So as you know already, early prince is when you're figuring out, okay, where am I going to build? Where am I going to put down roots and start building? And some men know instantly. Some men already knew ahead of time. They just weren't doing it yet. Some men, it takes 3, 5, 7, even 10 years to try things and have it catch. To one of my nephews, he thought he wanted to be a policeman. He got a degree in it. Then he took a ride in a police car. Went back to school and got a business degree. But like he was all ready to launch, and then, not that. That's not me. And that's what's happening, right? This is it. No, this isn't it. Or, and time. If I could give men permission, I wish we gave men permission to not know. Just because you turn 30, you're not supposed to know what the heck you're doing. They're irrelevant. Yep. You'll know what's yours to do when you do. And not trying things, which people will criticize you for trying so many things, not trying things isn't going to help you figure it out faster. Just sucking it up and working at the job you're supposed to isn't going to help you figure it out faster. It's just going to delay.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something about that? I said a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do you
Well,
want
if
to
I may
say?
just jump in, I just want to share my personal experience because I think sometimes personal experience just ground these ideas a little bit more in so listeners can understand them more deeply. And I consider as well my own journey. I mean, having been born in Germany and as well having been raised in Germany, I came out of school and then was like, okay, what do I do now? I mean, I had a clear roadmap until then. And the question presents itself around, oh, not really sure. And I mean, I had some ideas and I had some impulses, and then I started studying architecture, and then I realized, oh, like this is something I'm doing because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, what I should do, right? And then I had
Yes.
another impulse towards maybe becoming a paramedic because I wanted to study medicine, and so I did that for a while, and then it was like, I don't think this is my path. And then I just scratched all of that and I just started traveling the world. And I did that for a good 5 years, right? And for me, it was really about essentially unwinding all the ways that I've been imposed certain expectations or certain standards of how I should be living my life and who I am. And I think I really just needed that space to actually discover who I really
Yes.
am. And as well,
Yes.
untangle myself from all this conditioning that I've received. And, this is where my adventuring started. And this is where, I, in my own expression, similar to your son, Jeff, had explored as well the things as well that I wanted to become competent at or the things I wanted to as well practice. And it was literally when I became 28 where I felt that demarcation towards, okay, I feel like I'm complete with all of this. It's time to move on. Yeah. And I had this initial idea of, considering that I've been involved in personal development since I've been 23, that I wanted to be a coach and I wanted to help people in this way. But it took me as well
Yes.
around 5 years until I actually understood from I want to be a coach helping people to I want to be a coach for men, helping men in relationships. And it took me around 5 years to get to that place. So, yeah, just to maybe as well ground that experience in with an example.
Perfect. So, what we've noticed in the way that we talk about it, which has to be an oversimplification, is that being a prince is in three phases. And then, as I told you before we started, I've seen so far that being in the tunnel appears to be three phases as well. And so, when we get to there, we're going to be resting on what we did last time together about shame and noble forgiveness. So, I'm so glad we have that foundation. So, early Prince, you may have to try on a lot of coats before you find the one that fits. And being impatient about it, or having someone in your life be impatient about it, or ridicule you about it, that's not going to help. Um, then, then the middle Prince is when you've landed. This is it. This is mine. This feels right. Do I know everything about it? No, but I want to,
Hmm.
right? I'm going to be great at this. I can get my teeth into it. And even as you're in the middle Prince, you may see certain nuances. Oh, what I coach in is men in relationships, right? So that kind of refinement that happens in the middle of the action of building. If you tried to get all the refinement before you started, you would never get any. So we need to have space for ourselves to let it appear, let it reveal itself, let it show up maybe as a result of our biggest mistake, right? Like we have to have room for ourselves, and we have to have room for men to be going through this. And then late Prince is what we observed, because when I first started studying men, I was interacting with someone who could articulate being a late Prince. And the way he put it was there are a lot of points on the board, is one way to think of it, or I'm almost there, right? I can the destination is within reach, and there's some things to take care of, but there's this sense of confidence, this sense of, yeah, I did this. I what I set out to do, even if it wasn't linear, I did something as good as or better. I did something maybe even I couldn't think it, but it is it. and I'm almost there. And there's a kind of confidence that happens. There's even kind of a little cockiness that gets in there. There's a sense of looking up and, wow, there's more to life than just building. I've built enough that I can take some time to enjoy, for example, whether it's enjoy my kids, enjoy some adventures that are kind of like I did before, right? Recreations in some way. And that appears to only last somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 months. I haven't gotten to do work on it. Maybe you could start finding out, okay, that cocky, I got this. How long did that last before your face hit the cement? Because that's the bummer. It doesn't last. It doesn't just flower into kingness. And is there anything you want to say before I tell you what I've seen about the tunnel?
Absolutely, yeah. I would love to spend some time just within this Prince phase, and I would as well like to bring it into the context of romantic relationships, because with a lot of the men that I speak to, and as well, of course, in my own personal life, I see that there's challenges that occur. And one of the observations that I often observe with myself is a limitation. The limitation of time, the limitation of attention, the limitation of resources. And I'm aware it's not that black and white, but what can often be perceived as such is it's either me and the business or it's her and the relationship. And it's almost like there's this perception of I need to pick one or the other. And I think one of the things as well that's just so challenging about being a prince is just this difficult recognition that I don't yet have the thing that I really want to provide. And then within relationship, there might be this request or this ask, or maybe there is a genuine need. And it's almost like, this has been my experience. I've felt myself at times being a disappointment. And I think this is something that can be quite challenging for a lot of men. And I would love to hear your perspectives on this.
Yes. So remember where I started about what if men are responding to women, and what I discovered is mostly we have it backwards. What we don't take personally, we should, and what we do take personally has nothing to do with this. And so one of the things that I see is something to understand, as a woman, something to understand about the men you're interacting with, and as a man to understand about yourself. So for some men, what they picture they're building with. They're building with a partner. They're building with a mate. They're building with. And so early prince, or as soon as middle prince, I know what I'm doing now, they want their with. Where's my with? I never wanted to build this on my own. She was supposed to show up by now. He was supposed to show up by now, right? Like, where's my with person? And so there will become, for that kind of person, there will become a concerted effort. Hunt the wife, hunt the wife, hunt the wife. And he'll pour all his energy into it. Whatever he was building will suffer, because he's pouring all his energy into this next objective. And unfortunately, since she doesn't know what's happening to him, she's developing expectations that how he's paying attention to her now, he always will. And she'll make him wrong for the next 40 years. I'm so sorry. Instead of, this is what he's doing. And then once he has her, now I've got the mate. Now I have to protect the mate, provide for the mate, get back to work. If he was working with people, they're praying he will close the deal soon, because he's almost worthless here. Please don't have this just string out. Now, there are other men who they don't have that picture. They are more, instead of building with, they're building, and then there will be who's the for. Now, who's the mate that's going to show up? That's the person I built this for, that's going to receive this from me. Wasn't by my side because I didn't want somebody by my side, right? And that causes its own set of problems because women don't know what's going on. And so they may be someone who is companionship, who is life force, feminine life force, who is a source of the very real need for sex. And she keeps trying to get him to marry her. But we're not at that point yet. We're building for, you're my companion for this part of my life. If you spend all your time criticizing me, you're no longer a companion. Goodbye. And she won't understand what happened. Because if you've listened to In Sync with the Opposite Sex, which you can get at AlisonArmstrong.com or Audible, we have this time thing that's very much have you listened to In Sync?
I have. It's great. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So we have a time frame that's tied to reproduction. Yeah. And we have very short reproductive lives. We risk our life to have sex because if you think of the history of women dying in childbirth, and our biology doesn't know that we might have dependable birth control. So it's there, even if we don't want kids, it's still there, this thing that I've been with you for this long. I have spent precious reproductive time with you. You owe me the rest of your life. Even if I'm terrible to you, you still owe me because we've spent the last fill in the blank. It starts at about 9 months and then it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. You owe me. I'm sorry. We didn't decide to be this way. We're dealing with instincts as much as everybody else is, and it just affects us differently. So did you want to say anything about that before?
Yeah, I've definitely found a lot of value in this understanding, the distinguishment between two types of princes. And I saw as well that truthfully, I can see the truth in both of them. And, both of them resonate with me. And again, as I mentioned to you, there is this part of me that's like, I'm so painfully aware that my focus for probably in the next decade is going to be towards this thing. And it's almost, there is this tension in, I am compelled to build this thing. And yet at the same time, there is this yearning for relationship and for connection. And at the same time, also the limitation of what I can provide. And then there is this association to, I cannot put a woman through that right now, or it feels easier to just build first and then bring her in. But then another aspect of me is like, I don't know if I can do it on my own. And there, truthfully, if I were to really sit with my honest truth, I think to your point, my fear is that a woman will not be there for the ride. And she won't actually have my back when things get very challenging. Because that's been my experience in certain moments. Even though I've had wonderful relationships, there's been sometimes association that, will she really have my back when things get challenging? And I think this is also where this is a lived experience for a lot of men. And so I wonder if you can speak to those two tensions that can be present for men. Do I find the woman now, or do I build the kingdom first?
Well, while I think there are definite build withs, build for, and I love that you spoke to you can see both, which is what brings to the forefront what men say, the right person. When I meet the right person, if I meet the right person, hopefully I'll meet the right person. And one of the things that men say, because we talk about this in Understanding Love and Commitment, and there's a panel, and we've asked, I don't even know how many men by now, what makes a woman the right person? And we'll also ask, what had you marry your wife? And I promise you, in all the panels we had asking these questions, love was never mentioned. Because I love her. What makes the right person? Well, there's 12 things we've identified. None of them are I love her. Now, women might think this is horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Love ought to be a consideration. Well, to men, loving women is obvious and therefore does not need to be mentioned. Right. Really, I tell women all the time, everything you're trying to do to get a man to love you, you're messing up. You're blowing it. Men love women, and then we show them you're better off if you don't care about me. You will waste your life force on that. So they don't mention love. It's not about love. It's about, like, you in the process, if you realize I'm really looking for that strength that is complementary to me, that's going to get me over the hurdles that I know are there. And so you're going to be looking for someone, and you may think this could be her, this could be her, but you're looking to see what happens when there are problems. You're looking to see what happens when there are setbacks. You're looking to see what happens when you're not fulfilling your goals. Does she abandon ship? Did she hop to the horse running by that faster? So this is why what men have said over and over again, why did you marry your wife? Well, we'd been through so much already. I knew we could make it through anything.
I love that.
Number one answer. Number one answer.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's, I mean, I have tingles, the beauty of it, do you know? And this is why, and we put it on Instagram once, and women went bananas. Like, they were outraged because my social media person is a man, and he doesn't know the things that he doesn't always know the things that need to be in context. So what he just posted was, who men marry are the women who are being their wives. And like, oh, you think I'm going to start taking care of you and waiting on you before you ever put the ring on the finger? Yeah, no way I'm ever going to be doing that. And no, it's not that. You're being his wife. I mean, I wish people knew the definition of husbandry. I studied animal husbandry. It means to care for. It means to take care of. It means to anticipate and provide for those needs, plan ahead. Like the man who was saving money for the baby crib before he ever asked his girlfriend to marry him. So it's completely natural. And because of women's relationship to commitment, they're waiting till they have that thing before they act that way. Instead of showing how much they care, having your back, being supportive, because they admire you, because they want to be that one that might be making the difference between your ability to keep going or to not, right? They're the one that packs the lunch. I got you. Here's your lunch. Amazing what that communicates. I ironed your shirt. Really? And too many times we've decided these things are menial instead of what they're saying. What they're saying is so much
deeper,
bigger.
So much deeper.
So much bigger. Yeah. Yes. And So I got to say this one thing here, and I misnamed them. I just realized it yesterday. It's called Amazing Development of Men First Edition and Amazing Development Second Edition. And normal second editions, you assume include everything important in the first edition. it should really be part 1 and part 2, because I hate being redundant. So I don't repeat all the basic information that's in the first 54-minute recording in the 3-hour and 40-minute recording. We figure you got that. We're moving on. But one of the things that we do address in the Amazing Development of Men, currently called Second Edition, is how women confuse readiness. So women take readiness personally. Like, if you loved me more, you would be ready to marry. And women don't know that when you say I'm not ready to be married, that is an assessment of your ability to do what you need to do and take care of another person. Do I have that much capacity yet? And it's not personal. It's not personal. Although we do affect, if a woman is committed to a man and it doesn't seem so hard to take care of her because we're doing it together, then who wouldn't be ready for this? I'm better off. Who would be ready to commit to this? It'd be an idiot not to commit to this. But because we're withholding it until we're withholding the wood and demanding fire, but we don't know that we are. Okay. I just got to say some things in ways that I've never gotten to say them before. And that is a gift to me. So thank you. And what would you like to say about this before I think we're going to go into the tunnel?
Absolutely. Soon. I would love to dive into that. I mean, yeah, this is beautiful, everything that you're communicating. And I guess I think it's always valuable just to bring personal context. But, I think I've had so many experiences where it's like, I mean, it's beautiful when it's great and when things are flowing. But then I do have an eye for those experiences when push comes to shove, right? When quote unquote shit hits the fan, and when things get difficult, and there is this observation towards, okay, like how do we show up? How do we argue with each other? How, in what context are we with each other? Or is there an adversarial relationship that comes? Or are we going to be with each other? And so I think it is within that where I can have this sense that, when things become difficult, she pulls out, then I'm like, pfft. And that's when I want to pull out, right? Because there is this consideration that, like when things get difficult, she won't necessarily have my back. And again, I also just want to bring compassion to the experience, having heard everything that you said in terms of this being instinctual. I understand the primal fear, or, not on an embodied experience, considering I'm not a woman, but I can only imagine the instinctual fear that shows up, when things get difficult. And I'm like, oh my God, am I safe? Am I protected? Am I taken care of? And I understand that impulse to want to back out, but I just also want to acknowledge how it compels me and how it moves me when that happens, right? And I think it does also creates this fear around really committing. And I guess as well, maybe one last thing that I might just want to speak into here with you, if you're open to sharing about it. But I think there can be this association towards men not being committal. Yeah, and I think this has definitely been something that's been thrown at me in certain moments. And I heard you speak to interviews in the past where you said that commitment is a man's nature, and it's actually a state of peace for him. I mean, that definitely brings a completely new context to it. I would love for you just to share a few things on that, and then we can happily dive into the tunnel.
I can, but I have to say something about what you said before that part. Yeah. Okay, so if I forget that part, just bring it back. Good. So remember how you said when things get difficult? One of the things that I learned about men is that you know that things will get difficult. You know that. So you talk about problems and difficulties as whens. When things get difficult, when we have problems. Women think if this is meant to be, there will be no difficulties and there will be no problems. And if I'm having a problem, I'm going to hide the problem from you. Because if I tell you I'm having a problem, then you'll know we're not meant to be. And it'll be over. So women actually hide the problems that could be the demonstrations that men are looking for, which the way one man put it was, what I want to know is when we have a problem, are you going to make me the problem? Or are we going to be on the same team solving the problem? And that's the evidence they're looking for. And we don't know that. There's this fairy tale that it's going to be smooth. It's going to develop organically. Sometimes men will say, I want something to just evolve organically. Well, a lot of relationships that have lasted decades they developed under fire. And it either blew up quickly or they kept getting how much they could trust each other. And many of the great romantic movies are about that, right? So I just had to say that. And it's one of the things I love about men is that, well, the way one man put it was, a problem to a man is like a squirrel to a dog.
I like that.
Let me add it. Yeah. So we hide the things that you'd actually like to solve for us as a way to provide for us. And if we won't let you, and so you can't have an impact in the quality of our lives together, there is no us, right? You can't tie your wagon to someone who won't listen. Like it's all about the nail video. Just won't listen. Well, I'm not going to put my life, the quality of my life, which my husband nailed it. He said, nothing affects the quality of your life more than the person you choose to share it with. Not your career, not your health, not your money. Nothing affects your life more than the person you choose to share it with. And women don't know that most men, unless you're overwhelmed by chemistry, too much chemistry will make you a bloomin' idiot. Please don't marry for chemistry. It's not scarce. That's why I put Chemistry and Connection on our YouTube channel, so everybody could find out you can cause either one at will, more or less. You don't have to marry it. So having said that, committal. Yes, there's a myth of men being non-committal. The man who is building for isn't looking to build with. He will be accused of being non-committal maybe for decades. And I understand it, because when y'all are focused on us, it's ambrosia. It's intoxicating for you to be focused on us. And then we want to marry that instead of sign up for a life together. And when women say that men are non-committal, they don't know that you're not ready, say for marriage or for relationship, for buying a house or having a baby, because you are committal. You want to do it right. You're waiting until everything's in place so you can do it well. And however you've been shaped, like the parents you were raised by, you want to be that parent or you want to not be that parent. Like Mike in Keys to the Kingdom, right? Which is the fictionalized version of the stages of development. So non-committal it's just baloney, because I'm not committing because I'm not going to do something I can't win at. And I'm not committing to this because I've already committed to this. I am committal. And because I am by nature committal, I choose my commitments carefully. I don't say yes to everything, which women mistake as commitment. Someone who keeps saying yes and doesn't follow through, right? We just have different brains. And so we're looking for different kinds of evidence. And we're looking for evidence that you love me. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Instead of, are we on the same team? Are we complementary? Are we a good pair? Do I have space for him to be not good at what I'm good at? Because that's why he picked me. And didn't I pick him because he's has strengths that I don't. So how can I empower that instead of start attacking it? Like this is complex. Okay, you want to say anything? You want to go into the tunnel?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for bringing that in. And, again, it just brings compassion and it brings understanding and also maybe forgiveness towards ourselves as men. Those moments when we might have received that, you're a commitment phobe or you don't want to commit, and just the ways that I had felt guilty in the past, right? And so I just want to name that, but absolutely, I'm just as well track of time, and I absolutely want listeners as well to receive value of the tunnel and then as well the understandings of the king.
The thing we wanted to spend most of the time on, we haven't gotten to yet, but it's okay. Yeah. You're my last thing today, and this is important.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have women who they're so upset because he hasn't popped the question. And they'll say, I just want to spend the rest of my life with him. And they don't like my response. I say, you can start spending the rest of your life with him anytime you choose. They don't commit first. What if you committed first? And I was speaking to a man last weekend who got engaged. He got engaged. And I said, I need to tell you something. And this is a man, at least in his 50s. This is what I would call a grown-ass man. This is a king. This is a leader. And he got engaged. And I need to tell you something about this. He's like, what? And the moment you decided to marry her and she accepted, you got married. You became her husband in that moment, and you're taking care of her the way you believe a husband would, and you're being protective of her in ways that you haven't been before. And she could interpret that, because she's not married yet, as you're now trying to control her. And his eyes got real big, and he's like, oh my gosh, I just did that. I told her she couldn't take an acting job that I didn't think was good for her. I told her, no, you can't do that. He's like, oh. Yeah. Okay, the tunnel. All right, I feel like I'm like nailing myself down to the seat. I think I can do this. This is what we've seen about the tunnel. That in the process of being a middle prince, in your commitment to what you are building, maybe even in how you chose what you're building, there's a very high likelihood that as a man, you have been accommodating. You've been accommodating and you've been adapting in order to get the respect that you need, the opportunities that you need, maybe the affection that you need, the approval that you need. And in some cases, too many cases, the adaptations, in the process of the adaptation, you sacrificed yourself. You weren't true to yourself. And as we talked about in your previous episode, which you might want to tie to this one, right? The betrayal of oneself, harming oneself, is one of the greatest sources of shame. And so what I've seen as the first phase of the tunnel and the signs that you can look for is this awareness, and a growing awareness of, I sold myself out there. I sold myself out there. I sold myself out there. I'm sick. I feel sick with how I've betrayed myself. Now, if a man does what we taught last time, noble forgiveness, and heads into the shame, owns that he did that, forgives himself for doing that, it's going to go great. Because as you own it and forgive yourself, you're clarifying for yourself who yourself is. You're becoming clear and clear and clear about, this is who I am and this is who I'm not. So that's the front of the hand of seeing the betrayals. If you go at it that way, you can have a short tunnel. The back of the hand, unfortunately, is anywhere. It could be irritation. It's more likely to be anger, even fury at the people you perceive demanded that adaptation from you. They required it. And what I finally got to see, because I couldn't understand, why can someone have a 6-month tunnel and someone have a 6-year tunnel? And so I had to pay closer attention. What is going on? And having known a man who had a 6-month tunnel, and he actually did something really important, and it's why it's in Keys to the Kingdom. While he was in the tunnel, he went and participated in the New Warrior training with the Mankind Project. Someone else I know, while they were in the tunnel, they participated in Landmark Education, including the advanced course, very clarifying about who you are. My husband, what he did in the tunnel before I ever met him was he had a therapist that he just got to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk his way through it. So whatever it is, to be able to work, head into the shame and own it, instead of men who get stuck aren't doing this part. They're just doing this part. They're just pissed and raging about the people that they're blaming for them having betrayed themselves, blaming for the adaptation that they insist that those people demanded, and they think they should not have demanded it. They didn't have the right to demand it, and they did anyway. Well, you can spend a long time there if you want, but if you don't own, no, I chose to adapt to that. I chose to accommodate that. I sold myself out. This is part of becoming a king, is owning self-betrayal. And if you go this way, then you end up in the middle of the tunnel, which is clarification. Who am I really? Who am I really? I'm this, I'm not that, I'm this, I'm not that, I'm this, I'm not that. That would be the middle. You do that work, then you end up in what I'm seeing as the last phase of the tunnel. And I've known some people who get stuck in the last phase of the tunnel. I knew somebody. I still know him, a dear friend. But he got stuck in the last phase of the tunnel because the last phase of the tunnel is being prepared to pay the cost of never betraying yourself again. And you'll see it in every context of your life. What will you no longer put up with in your romantic relationship? It can end a lot of romantic relationships. What you'll no longer put up with about money. What you'll no longer put up with your kids if you have them. What you'll no longer put up with in your workplace, in your business, in the way that you're treated by a client, a boss. Screw that they're our biggest client. No, I will not be disrespected like this ever again. Oh no, but you know what'll happen if I do that? What about the mortgage? What about the da-da-da? So, or in the case of my friend, the fear of losing the love of his family. That if he was true to himself, he would no longer be loved by them, especially his favorite sister. I knew she would be the last one that he ever told about the decision that he had to make for his own life. I knew she'd be the last one. And she was. I got a text. I should have given her more credit. She didn't pull any love back by what he had to do. None at all. So that last part of facing that, okay, I'm prepared. And then I think, and you can probably relate to this, that that the new king is a lot like an early prince. For the early prince, the adventure keeps calling him, keeps tempting him. Come on. Come on. And the new king is being tested. Really? How about now? Oh, it's just a little betrayal. How about now? Stand up to this guy? Stand up to her? Give up that? Come on. It's just a little sacrifice. And I don't know how long that lasts, because I just caught on to it. Very recently, men started showing up saying, I'm a new king. And I'm thinking, what the heck is that? And then I watched their way of being. They didn't have the ownership of their space the way established kings do. You could actually energetically draw their perimeter. They own where they are. And the new kings are wobbly. Kind of, yes, now kind of. So that's going to show up, actually. I am now downloading the sequel to the Queen's Code. And so the new things we've learned about the stages of development, so thank you for asking, these are all appearing in there. And the trilogy started with Keys to the Kingdom, getting to be inside the head of a man in the tunnel. And Mike's still here. He's in the Queen's Code. Mike's going to be in the King's Code. And it's astonishing. I don't control these books. I just type them, and it's astonishing to watch. I've been weeping. And this distinction between a new king and an established king is going to show up. Okay, what do you want to say?
Man, I could say so much, and there's so many questions, of course, that can come up from that. But again, I also just want to be respectful of your time. And there is one final question that I felt compelled as well to ask you. But, I just hope as well that the listeners will have received value from this conversation, and then as well this map that you had laid out, and I'm confident as well that they have. Before I ask you my final question, Alison, where can our listeners find you? And is there anything that you want our listeners as well to know about? I'm absolutely excited for the King's Code to come out, and I'm very curious when that will be. But yeah, just know as well that, I'll be one of the first ones to get it, and I'm very intrigued about it.
I'm laughing because I'm very curious about when that will be. It took 8 days to type Keys of the Kingdom. It took 3 weeks to type the Queen's Code, 96,000 words. Took a long time for me to say the word channeled without flinching. And I have spent about 10 days on Keys of the Kingdom, if you were going to add up the time. And I just got let out of chapter 1. And it's so different than the experience of the others. It's like, I think of it as a lasagna. There's like a layer, and then there's another layer, and then I think I'm done. Okay, I'll just review that, and then I'll go on. Oh no, there's another layer. And now there are 7 characters, and the men are as vivid as the women have been in the past. They're rich, they're complicated, and it's so beautiful.
I'm excited.
I just had tears. I weep while I type. I'm watching the movie going, and I giggle. That was when Claudia says to Mike, "Can you keep a secret?" It's like, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? So where you can find me, on Audible, you can find everything I did 20 years ago. I wish I were exaggerating. I think it's 2006 or 7 that I did the last stuff that we gave them. All the rest is at AlisonArmstrong.com. One L is nice. You can put 2 L's in. We have that domain too. It'll get you there. And the point of all my research was so that I could write the Queen's Code, and then typed it, and now leading into the King's Code. And I just strongly recommend getting the audiobook. You can get the ebook on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that stuff, but get the audiobook, which is only at our website. Because I watched the movie and I can't not recreate the movie as I read the book. And the emotion, the intensity, the emphasis is not necessarily how someone's going to read to themselves. And it's something we've been finding out. And it's heartbreaking to me to find out people are read it to themselves, filtering who they thought these people were instead of who I know them to be. And there's lots of ways to participate with me right now. We're doing a whole 3 month of Lux, which is the foundation of our curriculum, and then understanding women and then understanding men. And we're addressing it week by week. And we have international time. We have I think of it as Euro friendly time, GMT +1. And we have a, Pacific PM, so a Pacific AM and PM, which pretty much covers the globe. And I haven't slowed down. I wonder when I'm going to slow down. It's been 30 years. Shouldn't I be slowing down now?
Could be a good idea, but I just commend you as well for your work. And of course, I will put all those things in the show notes. Alison, if I can ask you a final question. As you said, you've been doing this work for over 30 years and you've been learning so much about men, and I commend you as well for your deep inquisitiveness and your inquiry around who men really are and supporting us in getting to know ourselves as well. I'm curious if there's been over the last year, 2 years, over the last few years, if there is something new that had come to you that surprised you about men. Something that maybe it challenged even your own current assumptions, and something that you've discovered about who men really are that, let's say, really compelled and moved you.
Oh, man. So this happened when I started downloading the King's Code almost a year ago. And first it astonished me. And then I got to experience it last weekend in the thick of it. And it has to do with if a person's orientation is being secure through productivity and the focus on productivity in their scan for strength, or like I said, looking for complementary strength, versus someone who feels safe through feeling connected, through connectivity. Men and women both have both. It depends a lot on hormones, actually. And someone who identifies as an elder is going to be way more focused on connectivity than productivity. Being an elder is to be beyond ambition. So there's a lot of space, right? And what I saw that blew my mind, and I got to be in the heart of it last weekend, is that when your focus is on productivity, creates a different relationship to communication. And where on connectivity, the need in communication is that we not disrupt the connection. We're afraid of saying anything that will disrupt the connection. This amazing conversation with my daughter before I came here with you, and she said something that she needed to say, was afraid to say that it would hurt my feelings, and it ended up being perfect, right? But she's female. She's a new mother. She's got female hormones like crazy. So she was tentative about it. And then she's courageous. So she said it. Well, if safety is in connection, we're very careful in communication. We want it to be smooth. We want there to be no problems. We want there to be no difficulties, because then we think we're safe. Focused on productivity. What did we accomplish? What did we get done? Who cares if we disagreed? Who cares if we yelled? Who cares if we told the other person they were a stupid idiot? Who cares? Look what we accomplished. Look what we got to. The rest is like, whatever. And you can relate to that?
Yeah, for sure.
So I was at the heart of a human collision on stage. Because I had both things happening. I had something I'd committed myself to that I was going to produce no matter what. I had an amazing person beside me whose connection to her mattered, who kept interrupting me, not because she wanted to, but because the person she was accountable to didn't know where I was going or was I going to get there on time. And he had reason to believe that. So I kept getting interrupting him when I was trying to produce. And it was a shock to be interrupted. Like I had to reset. And that finally I said, you don't trust me, right? That like you keep trying to move me along. I said, but you can't see where I'm going. So you don't even know how to move me along. Please just let me do this. And I had expressed several times in the weekend, because there was a lot of gender identity going on, like in how do people identify as men and women and what the man box and all that stuff. And I just said, okay, I'm having more difficulty with that because I am really a big black man in a small white woman's body. And after this thing happened on stage for the third time I was interrupted, I was just, right? A man told me, I saw the big black man. I liked it. And the feedback from the men was they had no problem. Like they just shrugged their shoulders with what happened on stage. They just yeah, things happen. This is a new experience. We couldn't anticipate that. We weren't prepared for someone to teach. I'm like, but I'm a teacher. You asked me here, right? And the men are like, oh yeah, it was great watching you set boundaries on stage. Very few women. There were like 15 women. 3 of them would look me in the eye after that. 3. The rest didn't want to have anything to do with me. I broke the connection. I broke the warm, fuzzy feeling. And it had me fall in love with men again. We got something done and you don't need it to be pretty. You can let it be messy, really messy. And, the person who was on stage with me, she ended up being the most magnificent at all. A normal woman would have felt humiliated. No, I'm looking at whose respect and trust that I have needed more than my own. And I'm owning that. Just like, oh my gosh. So I don't know how you relate to that or others relate to that, but that was the thing that started a year ago and it went just Sunday. And I am even more in love with men than I've been on this journey, just more deeply in love with men and how much you can be with for what you're committed to.
Alison Armstrong, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for everything that you've taught me. And on behalf of men and women, I just want to say thank you. It's been incredible.
You're welcome.
For all the listeners, I hope you received a lot of value from this conversation. As always, if you feel that another person, another man may receive value from it, ensure to as well pay it forward. And until next time, signing off. Thank you for listening to this episode. Your time and attention is truly appreciated. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for my upcoming episodes. And in case you know somebody who would find this episode helpful, I encourage you to pay it forward. Finally, if you've personally been receiving value from the show, one way you're able to support this podcast is by leaving a 5-star rating and a written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Not only does this help more people find the show, but it also supports me in bringing more incredible guests on for the future. I'm your host, Alex Lehman, and until next time, signing off.